Welcome back to the channel. Now I have a very busy day planned ahead. As you can see, I have a huge stack of pre-waxed foundation frames here to try to remodel some of my hives. They like this pre-waxed a lot more, so I'm going to try and put more in the hives. I also have a new nuke box here. If I get a chance and it looks like the hives are doing well, I'll make another split today. And I also have to check our split and nuke box from the last video, as it's been 2 weeks today since I created it, and the new queen could be hatching today or any time now. So my top priority today, and why I'm doing this first, is I really want to make sure this nuke worked out and that they did make a queen. So I'm really hoping I can find a new queen cell or a queen cell that the queen may have emerged earlier today. But we'll see what we find. So there's comb even right on the top there. Alright, so first thing, I'm going to take this feeder out. Looks like they top finished it. There's a lot of new comb in here, so let's get to it. There we go. A little more room to work with now. Yep, that one's in there pretty good. So they have been quite busy. Now, there was quite a bit of comb and honey on these when I first put them in, just to get them a good start. But it certainly looks like they added to it a good bit. Don't see a queen on here, so we'll set that off to the side. Check out the next one. Now the two on either side of the center plastic frame here were just the plain pre-waxed, so we'll see how they do. Okay, so they have a little bit of comb. They just started here, and if you see that, nothing's in it. They actually have a, looks like a queen cell right there started. There's a drone bee. Must be left over from my other hive when I put this in. That's pretty interesting. Now this is the frame I'm most concerned about. So this frame right here is the brood frame, so this will tell me if they have a queen cell on it or not. And they have started filling this right up with honey here. So must be a lot of the eggs and larvae hatched. Now they're replacing it with honey. There's another drone bee, 2 drone bees. So if you can see it, there's a queen cell right on the bottom there, and there's actually a little egg down in there. So that's a good sign. Seems kind of odd. So it's on the bottom, which normally means more of a swarm cell. And it's kind of odd that it's down there because I don't believe there was an egg there before. So that's might be a good sign that we actually have a queen somewhere here. I don't see any new eggs. So that queen cell right there I was just talking about actually looks like they may be breaking it down. So that means I probably have a queen somewhere in this hive or out getting bred. It almost looks like there's a egg down in there, but it's very hard to say. So that's a very, very good sign. That means there's a good chance I actually have a queen somewhere in this hive. So right there, it looks like there's another queen cell right there. So there's either a queen in this hive or there's a queen on the way from the looks of it. Either way, this frame right here is looking pretty promising. Just gonna give a really good look over, make sure I'm not missing anything. Alright, let's see what else we got to work with here. Maybe we'll find a queen later in this hive. Somewhere else. Oh yeah, lots of honey. So it looks like they've actually emptied some of these cells that had honey in it, but they are already starting to refill them as well. There's some new capped honey there, and definitely some new comb. So in a previous video I did have someone comment that I need to make sure I hold the frames over top of the beehive. This is probably due to if my bees fall off the frame, they're falling back in the hive, but also in case the queen is on there, that she's falling into the hive and not into the ground where she may be stepped on. So I do understand that as a precaution, but showing the camera is kind of learning purpose to help make these videos. So there's a little bit of a chance to it. I do check over each of these frames very well before I bring them over to the camera, unless I know exactly where the queen is on it. I try to avoid pulling frames away from the hive if it has a queen on it and I lose her, just to make sure that she stays on the frame and goes back into the hive safely. But I do understand that precaution of not pulling your frames too far away from your hive. So I think this nuke box was a success. I saw 2 queen cells, and one looked like a queen bee had emerged from it and they were starting to tear it down. And then I also found a second cell, queen cell, that hadn't emerged yet. So I think there's at least one queen out that's probably already out getting mated. And if not, there is a secondary queen cell there ready to go. So I think this nuke box will be all set. Now to get it going, I did add this feeder and it's now empty. I will not be adding, there's a little bee in there. There you go, little buddy. I will not be adding more food because there's already a lot of honey and a lot of wax in this hive that they're still making. I'll probably add on an entrance reducer since this isn't taking up part of the room now, just to make sure they can defend themselves against other bees and insects. But we'll see how they're doing in a week or two and see if we can find the new queen. Alright, so with this tan hive, I just need to do a quick check. Mark my queen if I finally find her or not, but that's definitely up in there. So another thing I need to do is also swap out some of these frames for pre-wax frames. Any ones with really wonky comb on them. I haven't checked this. Jeez. about 2 weeks, so you definitely have a lot of comb and propolis built up here. These are definitely sticking together pretty well. Got some wonky comb there. And so I will pull this frame and swap it out for a pre-wax frame here. Now, one thing I learned in my last video that I will not make that mistake again. Actually, we'll start with that. So the mistake I made in my last video that I don't want to repeat is that I took these frames and I kind of smoked them off somewhat, and I put them in my tractor bucket, and that was that. And I figured, you know what? I'll just sweep the bees off, you know, afterwards. That way, you know, I can keep moving with the video, get all my checks done and everything nice and quick. Worst mistake I've made so far, except maybe destroying queen cells. If you watched the end of my last video, you saw where I got stung right in the eye, right in the right eye, just right in the eyebrow really. And man, that sucker nailed me good, so rather not make that mistake 2 checks in a row for sure. So we're just gonna kind of lightly brush these bees off here. Knock them back down the hive. So another way to get the bees off this frame is just kind of to shake it down. That's actually all I did last time, but as you can see, it did not get all the bees off. And I called it good, thinking the bees will leave this comb, which was a big mistake because they're not going to leave all this food and work they did. And I threw it in the tractor bucket, so not make that mistake again. We're just going to make sure we get all these bees off here. And I'm going to take this comb about 20 feet away. Now the bees, some bees will still find it and start taking the honey out of the cells as well as the comb, but 1 or 2 bees are a lot better than about 50. And so if you can see here, end of my smoker kind of getting clogged up. Try and clean that out real quick. That's better. I do have some pre-wax frames here. You can see they're a little, maybe you can't see on the camera, but they are a little bit tacky, and you can kind of see bits and pieces of wax that were melted on them. So I'm going to start by putting those in the hive here. That way as we go, we kind of replace the frames we took out with new pre-waxed frames. Now in my last check, something I did was I tried to put the pre-wax frames towards the center of the hive because they do like to build center outward. So that way I had a little bit more time to get the pre-wax foundation in the hive before they built on the unwaxed. And that worked pretty well, but not getting to it for 2 weeks, they kind of took right off, and they have a lot of honey and wax built up. They actually have 1/3 of this frame, as you can see, capped already. The other side, it's a little wavy, but it's pretty neat comb. Looks good. Look how nice, and that's beautiful right there. So nice and neat. So if you watched my previous videos, you already know I did a test. This is the S, this is the P, self-wax and pre-wax that I purchased. So in my last video, they seemed to like the pre-wax more. They hit that first, but it was more of an inner frame. So now it will be interesting to see how they built off each. So my self-wax is a little spotty here. They kind of have some pretty neat comb, but they kind of don't in some spots too. Oh yeah, but this side is beautiful. So one of these sides I did wax a little bit heavier, and I'm going to assume it's this side, because this side looks like it has some spots where there isn't a lot of wax. So apparently the bees do like the more heavily waxed foundation. I kind of read some people said they do, some people said they don't, but they seem to like the heavier wax foundation here. So they did build pretty well on this. Took them a little bit to get a good start, but it's looking good now. Now this is the pre-wax that I purchased. My last video, they seem to like it more. You can watch that video to see why I say that. But we'll see how they built off it. So they did start filling this up sooner. But they do have a lot of very wavy comb on this purchased pre-wax frame here. Then again, on this side, that side looks pretty nice. They little wavy, but really isn't bad at all. So really, in the end, it looks like they hit both frames pretty even. Little wavy on each. One side looks good. So I'm gonna say buying pre-wax frames versus waxing your own isn't a huge difference. Seems like they did very well on both. A little bit of wonky comb. Not horrible, but it's definitely not great. A lot more wonky comb right there, so I think I'm going to pull this frame as well. Some of these frames, if I think I can, I will actually throw in my nuke box to start another colony here. That way I don't waste all this honey and work they did, but I can also clean up these hives quite a bit more. I don't see a queen here, but we're gonna smoke these guys out. Now, for anyone that's worried that my bees won't have enough food because it is mid-July, so it's kind of getting late in the season, currently the clover is going absolutely nuts, and all the wildflowers are actually blooming early currently, so there's plenty pollen in the air, and the next week or two is supposed to be extremely nice for them. So once again, I did not find the queen. This is the same family as my blue hive there. So for some reason, the queen in the blue hive just loves to hide on me, and it's very hard to find her in most of my checks. So it must be something in the genetics that for survival they just kind of hide, which is fine because this hive has definitely done far better with this new queen. Ah, this thing is getting heavy. So, one problem I do see with the unwaxed frames that get a lot of wonky comb is that they do make it much harder to find the queen because the queen could be hiding under any of that wonky comb. So you have much more of a chance that you could harm your queen as well. So this pre-wax frame with them building better comb on it definitely adds a safety feature to your queen. Makes it a little bit harder for her to hide, easier for you to find her and make sure she's safe every check. So in this video I did take out a lot of the unwaxed frames that had wonky comb on it and replaced it with pre-waxed foundation frames. So they'll build a lot nicer comb on it. They should be able to build it back pretty quick. So I think this is the frame I'm going to take for my nuke. It has a lot of brand new eggs in it, a lot of larvae. There's some royal jelly. Well, since I know my queen isn't on there. Also looks like it had a queen cell off the bottom there, a swarm cell. And I've noticed in both these hives they actually have some swarm cells off the bottom of the frames. So swapping out the frames and giving them a little more room will be a good thing for them. They were starting to get almost all the frames at least comb on it, and a bunch of them filled completely out. So I'll shove this in my nuke box, and I gotta hurry up because I hear thunder rolling in. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing I did with my previous nuke because it seemed like it worked well. Got two empty frames that are pre-waxed. I'm gonna put this brood frame right in the center of them. There's a lot of bees there. And now I'm going to grab a couple of my wonky comb frames and stick them on the outside. That way they have plenty of food and plenty of honey to eat off while they make a new queen. And I can also use some of that wonky comb. Okay, so I picked out some wonky comb out of my other hives. So now my other hives are either pretty nice and clean wax and comb, or they're all pre-waxed frames now. So I finally got that all cleaned up. I know that bugged a lot of people. So it's done. Alright, you can calm down. So this is a pretty nice frame I pulled out of another hive. Lots and lots of wax and comb. Lots of honey that's already capped. So I'm going to put this in there so they have some food to eat while they make a new queen. Apparently I didn't leave myself enough room. We're going to put that right there. Move our brood to the center. And then this is actually pretty nice and neat comb. The other side is a bit wonky, but I pulled that, figure I shove it in here. Gives them a better start at some nicer comb. Now all we gotta do is feed them. Feed them more, I should say. Just gotta make sure my notch is on the upside so there's less places bees or any other insect can enter the hive. And then I just gotta add some 1-to-1 sugar water. Okay, got my bee feeder here and my mixture. I don't seem to use wide mouth canning jars for this. So I'm always mixing it in my own so I have something sealed. And then I just dump it in here once I get up to the hive and I'm ready for it. That way it doesn't slosh around and spill. And then this top right here has tiny holes in it. So it kind of just slow drips. The bees can actually kind of suck the sugar water out of the little holes there. It stops dripping after a few minutes, it seems. Once you're on there, you tip it upside down, put in the front of the hive here. Alright, so the bees are quite riled up now because if you could hear it, there's thunder in the background. A storm is coming and they weren't happy with me. I had them open. Now, my orange hive, Here it's doing quite well, the nuke. There's a lot of bees in it. Broken queen cell and one solid queen cell to still hatch, so they should be pretty well set. So I have quite an abundance of frames. Some are empty, some are partially waxed, and some are actually pretty well packed with sealed off honey. It's already capped. So I'm actually going to take those down to the house for now, and I have another beehive I gotta put together. I'm gonna put it together, put it up here with a lot of these frames that are uncapped inside the box, and that way the bees can come in and steal that honey and steal that wax and they'll reuse it. Or maybe a swarm will move in. Either way it will be a win-win. I gotta get cleaned up before it downpours, so I'll catch you next week. Now if you're wondering how you clean your bee suit, putting the lid on your beehive at the last possible second before it starts downpouring is how you get a nice clean suit. So if you want to see how my experiments are doing, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so it notifies you when I post a new video, hit that like button because I keep getting stung and this sucks.